Around 4 years ago, I made an absolute fool of myself. And today, I'm going to be reacting to my very first competition as a spanking new white belt. I was about 3 months into my journey. I was doing like 10 to 12 sessions per week, and I was completely bitten by the jiu-jitsu bug. Let's take a look, see if there's some improvements I can make, and what can change. All right, I have seen this sort of recently, but oh man, this is going to be so cringe. Okay, first match. So we don't bow at my gym, so this was the first time I was ever bowing onto the mat. I just figured that I had to because everyone else was. No idea what to expect. And as you can probably see, my stand-up is terrible. I've got no idea. I did have a game plan to do a sacrifice throw, but yeah, it's so overwhelming when you get in there for the first time. Your vision just shrinks down. You just go full on spaz mode. I'm like wrestling up. What is that? Straight into a front headlock. So here, what my opponent should be doing, in my opinion, is trying to snap me down a lot more. So I'm just going to grab a tool here. The opponent's side of things, he should drop to his knees and like try and snap me right down to bring me down onto the mat. And then he can try and use his, what I believe he has an anaconda grip here if he wants to go for that. But in the gi, the anaconda is a very difficult submission to land because of all the friction in the gi. This guy, I believe, comes from a MMA gym. So in no gi, it works very effectively, which is probably why he's going for it. It's probably part of his game. But as you'll see in a moment, it doesn't really pan out for him here. So he's dropping to his knees here. I'm sort of like almost 4-pointing, but I don't know what 4-pointing is. I'm just trying to stay on my feet and not concede the points. I'm getting absolutely ragdolled. So, look, if he was going to really commit to this, he would want to drop right back. He'd shoot his hips back, drop to his knees, and go for that gator roll. But he just pulls himself into almost side control there. Terrible white belt stuff. And, like, somehow I pass. But you can see here, look at my arm. I'm reaching over the top of his head. Actually, I'll change the color here. I'm reaching over the top of his head. This is a mistake. What I should have done is brought my arm around the other way and secured the crossface instead. This will ensure that I flatten him out, because what I'm doing here is I'm actually conceding the underhook. If he takes his hand out, brings it up under here, he can use the underhook, or even the other side, he can use that underhook to escape. So yeah. Not good. Okay, I'm like just doing a Homer Simpson to clear, and then finally I take the crossface, and then you can see we consolidate into the position, which is why the crossface is so important. That was the world's worst attempt to go to mount, but at this point, like, you got to understand, your adrenaline is absolutely peaked. Very first time, I was just acting on pure instinct. My jiu-jitsu was very limited, but it was limited even further by the fact that, you know, there was so much adrenaline going on. Okay, so he's put me in a quarter mount here. I didn't really know what to do or how to free my leg at this time. So oh no. You can see what's going to happen. The Americana. I'm just gripping and ripping here. Honestly, I made so many mistakes with that submission. He tapped, but I think he panic tapped, to be honest. And I think I overheard him talking to his training partners saying that he panic tapped. So there's so many things that were wrong with this. Now, firstly, I leave my arm behind his head. So in theory, you shouldn't be able to get enough torque to finish the submission there. But like I said, I think he just panicked more so than actually had too much pressure or braking force through his shoulder. The next mistake is my thumbs are under, not over. You want a thumb over grip, or like a monkey grip, with the Americana, and that's because you get limited in your range by your thumb. When you go to extend, it actually can limit your range. I do have a video on grip, speaking specifically about grip, that goes into that in further detail. Now, I'm thumb under on both. My arm hasn't cleared his head, so his head's still in the way. I think I just put my forehead to the mat and just ripped. So, you know, there is something to be said about just gripping and ripping. Here, just ripping, leaving my foot in. That was horrible. That should not have worked. But it worked. We got the dub, so let's move on to the next match. Man, so many mistakes, but yeah, lessons learned there. Okay, so this is the semi-finals. There was quite a smallish bracket on this comp. All right, so same game plan, except this time my opponent pulls guard. and I'm just blitzing the pass. I have no real strategy here. I'm just throwing myself into the position. Luckily, I take the crossface here. Now, again, you can see how excited I am because instead of consolidating by getting my right leg up under his arm here and then progressing to mount with that crossface pressure, I'm just trying to throw my leg over straight away to get straight to points, into mount to get the points. Now, in a competition, it's especially important to slow down, consolidate your position. Don't rush into it. There's no reason for me to be going crazy and trying to scramble straight to mount. But luckily this time I do have the crossface, even though I am rushing the position. Okay, I'm using my head here, I shouldn't really be using my head on his chin. If we go back slightly, you can see here, if I can just let it play. Now, you could see my shoulder position. My shoulder is on his face. It's across his chin. That's not actually realistically where you want your shoulder pressure. You want your shoulder pressure in the neck. It's much more uncomfortable and it's a better position. So to achieve that, what I recommend is roll your shoulder forward down on their chest and then slide it up into the neck rather than just grabbing their head like I'm doing, smashing my shoulder into their face and squeezing as hard as I can, which is essentially what I'm doing here. You can also see how high my hips are, incredibly high up. I have no consolidated control over his hip. I have way too high up on his face. He's not framing effectively here or here, so he's not really framing very well. If he was, he would easily be able to pop his knee in with all the space I'm giving him. So instead of bringing his knee down and in, he's just gluing himself to me and allowing me to essentially just have the position for free. Yeah, he's not framing at all. So he's doing the very, very classic beginner mistake of grabbing. So he's grabbing on here and here. You can see, look at his hands. Now, this is the opposite of what you want to be doing. When you're in bottom side control, you want to be framing away. So he needs to bring this arm around in front of my face. This arm needs to come to my hip here, and he needs to be framing effectively, bridge up, and then he can pop his knee in. So I'm getting coached here by JT, and he's saying to progress your position. Now, very sloppy again, but I was able to get to mount. I think that was very rushed. Now, if I was to do this again, or what I coach people to do now, is pin your knee, kind of like a knee on belly. Start your knee low on the hip and slide it across rather than doing this janky ass like throw over that I'm trying to do here. But I get to mount. This is actually really good what I did. Even back at white belt, I had a pretty good mount progression. Now, if I was to modify it slightly, I would recommend connecting my hands together like this to place on the top of his head and use that leverage to walk my knees up. But, you know, I achieved the same thing just by, you know, sort of crossing my arms, grabbing. So I walk my knees up to high mount to take a better dominant control over the position. Now, reaching back here to try and grab his arms, separate his arms from his body. So this is all correct. Not too bad. Using my forehead to post. This is fine. Getting my hips low, getting the coaching cue for more pressure from my coach. This is all pretty good. Yep, so I'm getting coach keep your base because I'm kind of committing too much weight on the back. What I need to be doing if I want to reach up, I need to have something posted on the mat, either a hand or be a lot more further forward with dominant with my hips. So reach underneath his head. I'm still reaching back a bit too much. Yep, I'm being coached to put more pressure on the neck rather than across the face, which is completely correct. Okay, so I pinned his arm to the mat and I did the exact same thing here. So I kept his head in. I didn't even bother to take my arm out, which, you know, not good, but I think that my opponent's just so locked down here and I'm just ripping it as hard as I can, to be honest. And they don't really have the defense tools to be able to stop the Americana like that. But realistically, that, you know, if I was to try and do that these days on a purple belt, it definitely wouldn't work unless they had really bad shoulders. So I need to clear the head, the exact same mistakes that I made last time, so I won't go over it again. All right, let's take a look at these fighters.
No mercy, let's go.
So I'm doing my same sort of strategy on the feet, just grip and rip. I'm just grabbing his collar, shaking him, try and get him to pull guard. If he doesn't, I pull guard. But I didn't really want to play guard, so I stood back up. I have no idea what's happening. This is terrible. This is such white belt stand up. None of us have any takedowns. We don't know what's going on. Oh, it's so bad. Yeah, cool. Yeah, again, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm trying to set up a sacrifice throw that I got shown just before this, but oh, terrible guard. I don't know how I was able to get him back into half guard. But yeah, guard retention was not my strong suit back then. Okay, cool. So I got to close guard. I'm trying to break his grip here. Okay, so I understand what he's saying now, but you can hear the coach saying, get offline, stuff the hand. But at the time, being a 3-month in white belt, I had no idea what he was talking about. Which, you know, it's really, really good. I was trying to follow the coaching as closely as possible because it was pretty quiet, and JT is such a powerful voice that cuts through the crowd. It was great, but I had no idea what he meant. What he's saying is to get offline, meaning I need to get off the center line, create some angles to do something. At the time, I seriously didn't know any of that, and I was just on pure instinct. So you can see here, I'm just grabbing his head, like wrapped around as hard as I can, and trying to deal with this threat. Yeah, no idea what's happening. That was so bad. Oh, this is very embarrassing. So I get on top, right? You say shoot the double. Oh, I get up on the single. And there's absolutely no angle. I'm just driving straight into him and allow him to just hop easily. He's posting so fine on my head there. What I really like these days is passing this foot, this leg here, to the outside. So with my left leg, I'll take a big step back so the leg's on the outside, right? I'll then pop it up to my arm, reach around like I'm doing here, but grab the far hip, and then you can easily take them down just by lifting and kicking out this leg. But man, this is so funny. Yeah. So here, he starts bleeding. And this guy, no offense to him, but I was much more fit than this guy. So the fact that we stalled out for like several minutes kind of annoyed me. Yeah, it was, you know, he was bleeding. It's not his fault. You know, whatever. I'm not going to say that he shouldn't get attention. I don't want to be bled all over. But yeah, it was kind of unfortunate because I think I was starting to get the pace on him and tire him out. But yeah, I'm just reaching absolutely nothing. So he's just framing. He's keeping me away. I've got absolutely nothing. Yeah. Okay, so the coach is telling me to sit through. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to do a sit through. I didn't know how to do any sort of wrestling, any sit throughs at all. I had nothing. So, yeah. So, 0 knees to chest here. 0 knees to chest. And by that, I mean this leg, I'm not bringing it to my chest. It's just trailing on the mat here. It shouldn't even be on the mat necessarily. This hand, I need to create the frame, push his leg down, get my knee to chest, regain my guard. Stop grabbing on here. This is doing absolutely nothing. I need to be framing away. If anything, I could have even come out the back. I could have taken his back off this because I have the underhook and because he's so overcommitted to his side here. Yeah. So underhook here, I thought he meant the near side. He means the far side. He's like, other side. Yeah, no shit. Oh, that's so funny. So I thought he meant this underhook. I didn't really know. I didn't really know the importance of the underhook in half guard. I didn't know that if you have the far side underhook, what he's saying is if I have this far side underhook, I can turn and come on top. I'm pretty gassed out, but yeah. Yeah, knees to chest. Knees to chest. Yep. Yeah, you can see here I'm pretty gassed out. There's no guard retention, no sense of urgency there. And even when I'm on inside control here, I'm still trying to grab the whole time when I'm in guard, essentially, in this comping gear. I'm just trying to grab the pants, just grab onto the pants and do something with it. And that's very common for white belts in gi, is to want to grab hold, like either bring hold like we spoke about before, or grab the pants here. But realistically, I don't want to do that. I want to let go of that shit, bring my arm in and start framing on this hip here. Use this frame against his head, frame his hip, ideally hip escape out, or just create space by bridging into him and pop my knee back in. You can see, I think I attempt it. He works the north-south, and he's going for a specific submission that he's hit a couple times this comp already. So he's got a pretty tight grip on my neck here. And he just hit a very basic paper cutter choke. I didn't know how to defend it, so you can see I'm just trying to jam my fist into his throat. Look, I didn't really go out here. Like, I think I half went out. Like, I went out enough to lose consciousness for a second, but by this stage, I'm up. I'm awake. I'm just exhausted. Yeah. I probably should have tapped, but, you know, is what it is. Good attempt, though. Look, that was pretty funny. There's a lot to be learnt from that. I think that the biggest common themes for me was the lack of guard. I had zero guard. I had no idea what I was doing in guard. And secondly was the stand-up. I had zero stand-up. I had no idea what I was doing. All of my roles in the gym pretty much at that point was just me trying to get on top, stay on top. So my passing for like 3 months in was okay. I was able to just athletic my way and blitz past people. My Americana was pretty funny. Very, effective, but ineffective at the same time, ironically. And finally, in this match, my cardio and my athleticism didn't win it for me. So congratulations to my opponent. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. If you got value from this, I do have the no-gi section of the day here that I can upload. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comments and I'll do another reaction video for the no-gi.